Um, The World's End. This one is a little bit different to Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, and I was wondering how the sort of production process may have differed, or the creation. Did you come at this one a little bit differently?
Not really, no. I think we approached it in the same way, but I think, the three films are all slightly different. Like Hot Fuzz is quite different from Shaun of the Dead in a way. And I think that's because we want to make sort of films that sort of connect together in terms of a sensibility, and they're like a trilogy of tone, but they all deal with slightly different subject matter, and as such, they feel slightly different. But I think that's a good thing. I think if we just... Because I think some people, when they they think what they want is exactly the same thing again. I want to see like another Shaun of the Dead. So, well, you don't really, because we did that already.
The pubs in the film on the Golden Mile feel like they're kind of characters in the films themselves in a way. And within British sort of cinema, there's such many great pubs like the Slaughtered Lamb in American Werewolf in London, or through With No and I. Were any of the pubs that are in the film kind of modelled on real life locations that you have visited, or any? I know there's a lot of World's End pubs in the UK.
Yeah. All of the pub names in the film are real, and in fact we wrote it's sort of based a little around my hometown, where I did a pub crawl when I was 19 in my hometown, which is the same place where we shot Hot Fuzz, and that place has, I think it's over 12, it's something like 13, it used to be 15, maybe it's 13 now, but so it's sort of based on that kind of structurally. But then when we wrote the script, then we actually changed the pub names to fit what happens in each scene. So the pub names themselves are supposed to be like tarot cards. They're supposed to prefigure what actually happens within the scene. So if you watch the film, some of them are more obvious than others, but they're supposed to tell you what's going to happen in the scene.
One of the things I also found quite refreshing about the film was the way that it dealt with the apocalypse. For me, it reminded me a lot of something like Quatermass and the
Yeah.
or the kind of John Wyndham novels, or something along those lines. Was it always an idea to keep the apocalypse an intimate kind of affair to begin with, and kind of spring from there?
Yeah, I think that was definitely an influence. There's a lot of British sci-fi of like the 50s and 60s, both like John Wyndham, Nigel Neal and Quatermass, and then, through TV, like The Avengers and Doctor Who. There's always that thing of like sort of starting small, people used to kind of like criticize John Wyndham's books as calling them cozy catastrophes. Now, I quite like that term, because I think it's kind of good in terms of like you see like the end of the world through a town, but then when you look wider, it's like, oh my God, it's the whole planet. So we like that idea. Both me and Simon are from small towns, so usually like those kind of movies would always affect me more. Like something like Village of the Damned or The Stepford Wives or Dead and Buried, like always gets me more because I'm from a small town. It means more to me than Godzilla smashing up Tokyo. So I tend to sort of like small town kind of like paranoia is always something that I find enjoyable. And also both because me and Simon are both from small towns, moved to London, and when you go back, it's always a bittersweet experience because like you feel, and this is basically, if you had to sum up the movie in one sentence, it's like you go back to your hometown and feel alienated. And that's the whole movie basically.
Well, within this one, there seems to be kind of less overt sort of pop culture references in a way. Not that the other films did have a lot of them, but they kind of were in that kind of vein. Was that an idea when you were going into writing the script that you wanted to kind of pare back a little bit and make the kind of references a little bit more kind of subtextual in a way?
Yeah, I think it's just something we wanted to do because I think, when people you should never listen to your critics, but when people would want to kind of like be really reductive about the things we've done before, they say, oh, it's all references to movies, which it wasn't. But with this one, we just tried to pare that back completely, so, there's not that many references to pop culture. There is in terms of music. There's a lot of references to the music that's in the movie.
The music's almost a character in itself.
Yeah,
in a way,
and the music is like a time machine, basically. The music is what's going to, like, the TARDIS that's going to take them back. But really, we wanted to sort of, like, the science fiction element, like, tips its hat to a certain type of kind of social science fiction that's, been a big part of, like, kind of the genre, since the Second World War. But really, what we wanted to do is make a film about the characters, and sort of it is essentially a film about friends reuniting and their attempt to kind of recreate this wild night of drinking and getting a very different wild night in the process.
Great. Just got a final question. As it is the final in the Cornetto trilogy, it's often been referred to as the Three Flavors trilogy as well. Could you actually assign a flavour to each film of Cornetto?
Yeah. Oh no. There are three different flavors in the movies.
Yes.
The first one is strawberry. The second one is like vanilla, classico,
Yep.
and the third one is mint. So like we actually have three different flavors in the movies. But in terms of like they all what connects them together is they're all films about the dangers of perpetual adolescence. They're all about the differences about fantasy versus reality, and they're all films about growing up, and they're all films about the individual versus the collective, and then they got ice cream in it too. So you know, can't go wrong.
Thank you so much.
Can't go wrong with ice cream.